Guys, if you are science fiction fans but you're not into Blade Runner, I don't know where you're at. I don't know where your head's at. Blade Runner is like classic science fiction caviar. Yes, the original is imperfect. Yes, it's a little weird, but it inspired like 50 years of movies afterward, and it's just damn cool. The blaster's super iconic. These are some of my favorite props to collect from that movie. So let's jump in and check this out. We're not gonna be looking at my small Blade Runner props today, just blasters. Let's see what we got here. If you guys are anything like me, you are Blade Runner freaks. So today we're gonna check out a couple of Blade Runner blasters. And by a couple, I mean we're gonna look through my hoard of Blade Runner addiction. So for those of you who have gone down the Blade Runner blaster route, whether it's with Tomenosuke or with a kit or with one of the other metal builds like the Sid kit or the Coyle, you know that this is a total rabbit hole for nerds because there's all types of work you can do on these to make them more accurate depending on the look you're going for. I have one version here which is finished like the WorldCon weathered beat up look. I have some other ones which are more ideal and they're blued. So we're gonna go through them in detail, but these are some of my favorite props. And they're also one of the few areas where I still get a ton of joy out of them knowing that they're not canon. So for example, this Rick Ross snub with a silencer, I think the kit was called the Enforcer. Totally not canon, totally an invented thing. I just jumped on a run on the RPF that has a shorty shotgun. Totally not canon. But people who love Blade Runner love it enough that they don't care. They want some variety of the original weapons. So let's check these out. Okay, this first blaster here is a Rick Ross snub with a silencer. This dude made some unbelievable kits back in the day. They're so sharp, they're really freaking hard to find now, but if you can get your hands on one, buy it. It will not be cheap, but his kits look like manufactured in a way that still blows my mind. This is one of the Rack Props Coyle blasters. Pewter, tons of metal parts on it. But if you want a prop that really looks and feels handcrafted and is still very badass, this is it. So going down one more, this was started off as a Tomenosuke. Now this Tomen was like the third or fourth one that I had modified, and this one was like beat and weathered for that WorldCon look. I spent forever trying to match scratches and little marks exactly to the weathering on the WorldCon blaster, which for those of you who don't know is a blaster that was seen at this convention, and it was the original Blade Runner blaster, and it was all beat up and it showed some age, and it was the first time many of us got a really good set of photos. And I'm sorry I've forgotten who took those photos. I'm sorry, I'll add you in the description. But it was the first time a lot of us got a good look at the blaster with high res photos, right? This is my particular favorite because I love that beat up, rust around the edges, kind of torn up look. Okay, this is also a Tomen, but this was from one of their early runs, right? Like they've done a bunch of runs as time has gone on. Truth be told, they've done too many in my opinion. I wish they would stop. Like they're flooding the market. Please stop. But their blasters are beautiful. There's no doubt. So with all the Tomens, you know, you've got resin parts. You've got some metal parts, and then you have some parts that are resin with this like metal powder mixed in, so they almost feel like metal. It's pretty crazy. Both of these blasters I have done a bunch of mods too, so they're all upgraded with steel cylinders on the inside. They're all upgraded with steel barrels. The result is you pick this thing up and it feels like a cinder block in your hand, which is pretty damn cool. You can also understand why Harrison Ford was so pissed about having to carry that thing around on set, because it weighs a ton. All right, going down one more. This is also a modified Tomen, but here's the deal. This guy is kind of an idealized version, right? Whenever you're working on a prop, if you guys are into this type of thing, you're gonna realize that sometimes you're making mods to make it more accurate. You're like, man, I don't personally like that, right? That's not my personal vibe. So what I did with that blaster is I wanted the clean blaster that had a couple little tweaks that were just my personal preference, and that's what that guy is. Below that, we have K's blaster from 2049, and then below that I have a bunch of random parts and accessories. One thing you'll find if you get into collecting these is that you're always ending up with bits and pieces, and here's a part from a real gun, and here's a part that I swapped out, so that's my pile of spare parts down there at the bottom. So this guy is a modified water gun. There was a company that came out with a water pistol Blade Runner replica that was like a cheap piece of plastic but wildly overpriced. but it was cast really sharp, so people were modifying it and doing a nice display prop. So I have a finished version of one of those there. A lot of custom work, just getting it to look the part. Below that I have just an old school resin kit, solid resin, no moving parts. It's interesting as you look at these, you can kind of see variations in the grip color, right? Like some are more amber, some are more yellow, some are a little bit more red. And until you kind of get them in a pile, it's hard to tell the difference and figure out what your preference is or what you want. Down here I have a couple things. We have a solid resin black police version of the blaster, and then we also have, hiding behind it, a Tomenosuke, which is a rubber stunt version of the police blaster. So no electronics. And then below that is actually the blaster that came with the 2049 Blu-ray release. The blaster's a little wonky, but you know, for like a Blu-ray accessory, what are you gonna ask for? It was stuck to the stand when it came in the box, so I took some time, I cut it off the stand, cleaned it up, modified it to make it look a little bit more like a replica. You know what, I do have one more. I don't know if any of you guys game, but in Fallout, that gun is the Blade Runner Blaster adapted for the game. And when you look at it, it's really obvious. So I actually have a resin kit that was modified to look like the Fallout twist on the Blade Runner Blaster. But these things are incredible. It's shocking when you look at how many other movies and games and things have been inspired by the design of this gun. Now, if you are just getting into Blade Runner props, there is a lot to learn about. My advice to you would be to spend some time on the RPF, but more importantly, spend a bunch of time over at PropSummit, either the actual forum, or if you hop on their Facebook group, it always has good info. There are some guys there that put me to total shame in terms of their Blade Runner knowledge. It is crazy, and they can definitely get you started. Whether it's blasters or other props, they're gonna be able to hook you up and let you know what to check out. This stuff isn't cheap. You wanna make good buys, and you wanna make sure you're getting good stuff and hopefully staying away from recasts and other weird stuff you don't want to be a part of. Like I said, these are some of my favorite props, so please check back soon. I'll be putting up more video content when I get a chance, and thanks. Later.